Hi there, everybody. Thanks ever so much for joining today's webinar. Today's session is going to be looking at Sage 200 Standard and how this works and how you could potentially look at migrating to this from either another platform or Sage 50. There is a direct migration from Sage 50 to Sage 200. So if you are happy with your data, the customers, suppliers, the way the nominal structure is set up, then you can import that straight into Sage 200 Standard. Sage 200 Standard is a cloud-based product. There is no requirement for your own server. You install a small application onto your device, and when you open that application, you will see what you have, what I have in front of me here, so which is Sage 200 Standard. So today's session, I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of the look and feel of Sage 200 Standard, some of the key functionality within it, and ultimately how this could help bring your business forward by moving away from something like Sage 50 without having to go all the way up the range to the Sage 200 Professional product. So Sage 200 Standard sits very firmly in the middle of Sage 50 and Sage 200 Professional. So in terms of look and feel, you've obviously got your menu structure on the left-hand side here, which is searchable, which I'll show you in a second. We have a home button up in the top left-hand corner, which will always bring this front screen here back up, which you can see where it says welcome to your Sage 200. We've got some quick links here, so things like latest news and do more with Sage, which will take you to the Sage University, and there's ways into the Sage help, which is very good. I think it's one of the best help documents available. It's all web-based, and not only does it tell you what things do, but also what the impact they might have throughout the system. As I click through these, you'll see you've got the getting started, and again, this is linking you through into help, videos, and some quick links into the key areas within the system. And we have homepage favorites as well. So these are a little bit like desktop icons, so shortcuts that you can paste here if you wanted to. We have frequently accessed, so this learns what you do on certain days. So today is Wednesday, and it knows on a Wednesday that I normally would go into my sales summary. I might go and run some Excel reports. I might go into my sales document status. But again, if you're a creature of habit and you always do certain tasks on certain days, this is a particularly useful feature that would always make sure that the right icons are available for you to get to the right parts of the system on those days. Up in the top right-hand corner, we've got the settings cog. This allows us to change companies. It allows us to look at logins, preferences. It allows me to open up things like our web portal and workspaces, which I'll show later on. It's also got the ideas hub, so you'll see a light bulb throughout the system as well. And this is Sage Always Listening. So there is a roadmap for the Sage products. Sage are keen to hear what you have to say about the products and what additional functionality that you might be interested in. So again, a great little shortcut that allows you to go through and submit that. We also have our favorite icon that you'll see throughout the system as well, and that does as it says. It allows us to put favorites into our bookmarks on the left-hand side, and then again, just another way into the help section. So coming back over to our search on the left-hand side, we see we have our menu structure and our favorites. So again, I'll show you how to favorite some items now. So if I click into, say, customers, and if I click into suppliers, you'll see that the menu layout is very similar throughout. So everything starts with a list, so customer list, suppliers list. We have a customer process map, we have a supplier process map, which I'll come on to later. And then we have additional folders that you can expand into, and then typically reports and settings towards the end of those lists. So again, I could expand into those. If I did want to favorite these, I could right click it and click on to add to favorites. And then from within the favorite section, I'm able to open up folders within here, and again, reorder these by using the edit button. Now, I've seen some amazingly sorted favorites bars. Some people will completely replicate the main menu structure, but only with the items that they find useful. Whereas me personally, I'll just favorite the functionality that I use and try and find it as and when. But if not, I will always use the search functionality. So, if you did need to search for something that you've not used previously, so you could search something like age, that would go through and show me all of my age of transaction, age creditors, etc. throughout the system. Again, particularly useful as you're starting to get used to it and learning where things are. And for example, if I right click on, say, manage stock take, for some reason that one's come up, but if you right click on that, it will actually say show in menu, and that will take me through and show me where that is in the menu, so I know where that is for next time. In terms of setup, you'll see that the data that we've got in this system is actually a Sage 50 direct import. So as I said at the beginning, you can migrate data across from Sage 50 into Sage 200 standard. And most people at this point breathe a sigh of relief that it looks very familiar to Sage 50. So we have our menu structure across the top. Yes, there's more buttons, but again, similar in the way that it's laid out. And then we have our traditional list view in front of us. If I wanted to filter this data, again, I can save some predefined filters, or I could search. So if I search ABS, that's going to show me all of the ABS garages that I've got set up as customers. And I could also click on this filter button, which would allow me to set up a new filter where I can say where in column, for example, account type is equal to, and then set a value, and then I could save that as a filter that I could come in and just select. I won't save that. So if I want to edit one of these customers, I could come in here and click amend account, and this will open up the amend screen. Now, from within the amend account section, this is going to allow me to set up all the address details. It sets up the credit limit. I can set up contacts. And again, I can have multiple contacts within a company. And not only multiple contacts, is I can actually set up which documents get sent to each of these customers, contacts. They are customers. So again, I've got, do I want to send account information? Do I want to send a statement to them? And again, I can edit these individually. Particularly useful if you have one contact that's always placing orders with you, but somebody else that might be responsible for paying you. Trading details, you'll see throughout the system, lots and lots of analysis codes. Pretty much everywhere within the system gives you the ability to have up to 20 analysis codes. We're using 3 of these analysis codes. We've actually named them here to customer type, the rep that's responsible for them, and then the region. And again, I can select a predefined drop-down list that I can select from, or it may be a free text item that you would want to write in there as an analysis code. I've got my default nominal details, and then I've got some information about where this company is based and the VAT rate. So again, if you are handling foreign customers, out in Europe, then you can obviously set them up from within here. Again, payment terms, we can set up under the payment tab. So again, early settlement discounts if paid within a certain number of days, and it will automatically work all of that out for you. I've got the ability to add some memos, some dates, so when the account was opened, when it was last credit reviewed, and again, just capturing some of that key important information. Documents I'll skip past because that's just the setup in the background on what document layout it might want to use. So again, you can have multiple different layouts. You might have different languages, for example, for each customer. So if you are exporting into Europe, you might need a French, a German, a Spanish document layout in different languages, and that would be assigned to the customer. I've got the ability to add attachments. So if they have completed a credit application form, then this would come into here and be attached. I can add links to server or online locations, and I can also track memos in here as well. So you can see here one in March that I'd put a little memo in against this particular customer, and I could come in here, edit this if I had permission to do so, or add additional memos. Pricing, the pricing book on Sage 200 is very, very strong in its capabilities and what it can do. So lots of different pricing metrics that you can handle. So different discounts based on quantities, based on price breaks. You can have different price bands, different currencies. So I'm yet to find anybody that hasn't been able to work with the Sage 200 price list. So there's a challenge there for you. But again, this is where you would link a different price group or price band to an account. And I can also do just general discounts as well and apply those as I go through. Alerts is similar to memo. So within alerts, again, another one here that I made and did in March. So please see me before selling anything to this customer. And if I just edit this one, you can see where I've actually ticked for this alert to appear within the system. And I can also set whether this alert is active or not. So again, it's just another useful, and you'll probably see this pop up later in the demo if we try and put an order on for this particular customer. I'll come out of this section now, and what I'll do is I'll go into our transaction inquiry. Now, the transaction inquiry screen that you saw me click on the top right-hand corner, this shows me everything that's happening with this customer. So I have got a credit note that's open, and I've got the 4 invoices here that have been sent to this customer that are potentially overdue or due for payment. I can see that I'm able to put things into query, so I can simply put a letter into here, which may convert to something that makes more sense to you. But Q for query makes sense to me. Again, you can set different letters in here just so you can very quickly see that things are in query. And also, if something has a memo, then it will have an A symbol here, which I can view by actually changing this drop down on the bottom left hand side. So if I go into the memo, it's going to show me the memos that relate to these transactions. Again, it's going to tell me which user has been working or raised these invoices, the source of it, and then a URN. So everywhere within the system has a URN, which is a unique reference number. So again, everything is traceable, and we can find out what makes up everything within the system. I've got my show outstanding only items ticked. So if I untick that, that's actually going to show me things that have already been handled and dealt with. So if these invoices have been paid, they would disappear off once I click the show outstanding only. And I have the ability as well to do archiving within the system. So after several years of use, if you wanted to, you can archive data out, and you'll get another tab next to this current, which will say history, and you could click into there to see the history. So this drop down menu, which I quickly showed you earlier, actually shows me the information that relates to the different invoices as and when I click them. So that changes, and then I can change to see the nominal detail and where things are being posted. I can look at the allocation sessions. I can look at the history of allocations. I can look at VAT, and again, where that's being posted and what makes up that. And then any bank information. So obviously this is demo data, so it's fairly limited, but the idea being is it's all in one place. We have the ability then to go into the account, we can view invoices, view credit notes, we can look at the attached documents, we can do reprints from within here as well. So I'll close out of that for the time being. And obviously there's lots of other buttons across the top here where we can raise things like invoices, we can receipt money in, we can raise a credit note. But for the purpose of today's demonstration, I'm going to keep it quite top level and just show you sort of the key areas. One of those is reports. Obviously there's lots of different ways to do reports within the system. So I can click on here and do a report. I could right click and go into reports from here and run different reports. And what you get out of the box from Sage 200 from a report point of view is very powerful, but obviously we EBS have a huge catalogue of additional reports. Sage have reports as well, so these can be built up over time, and obviously if you went with a project with ourselves, would make sure you have all of the reports necessary to run your business on day one. From here, I've got some actions as well, so I can actually, these are shortcuts into different areas of the system. And I can also do column management from within here. So at the moment, I've got certain columns selected across the top, and I can add in additional columns in here and reorder them if I wanted to. The key thing as well within Sage 200 is you can export data from pretty much everywhere. So if I wanted to export what I've just selected, I could just come in here and click export, and this will come through into Excel, and I can see that and send it to somebody to work on. If I went back into my transaction inquiry and actually went into one of the screens here, I can actually right click and do export, and I could select all of those out into Excel as well. So lots of different ways to get data out. and just making life a little bit easier if you can get it out into Excel. So I'll come on to some of the additional reporting in Excel functionality later on in the demo as well. So I'm going to minimize down my customers. I'll expand out my suppliers, which is very similar in the way that it works. We have the same amend account at the top. We have the same transaction inquiry. We have the same report functionality within here as well. So I won't go through all of that again. But again, the layout is in a very similar way. I'm going to skip past nominal and cash book and stock for the time being. And I'm just going to go down to my sales orders. And what we'll do is we'll put a sales order on in a second, and I'll show you what that looks like. First of all, you can see that you've got this list view, which is very similar to what we've just been looking at. And again, you can see all of my sales order lists. And again, I've got different columns enabled. And again, I could export this out into Excel if I wanted to. And I have got a filter in here that's just going to show me all of my part dispatched, I think, or ready for invoice possibly. I'd have to go in and have a quick look at the settings. Yes, ready for invoice, so I can see that that's set for true. It's just been called number 1 and hasn't got a proper name against it for some reason. So as I go into this list view, you can see that this is denoted by the little symbol on the left-hand side. If I actually come down into inquiries down on the left-hand side and go down, and I will see that I've got this globe symbol. And I can see here that I've got, for example, sales document status. Now, sales document status, or any of these ones with a globe, they're called workspaces. Now, these workspaces are designed to show you lots of information on a single screen. So I can resize these. I can minimize down my menu if I wanted to on this left-hand side, or resize that. But you can see here, these are all of my sales orders. And within these sales orders, these are the line items that are on these sales orders. And then I've got information on the document on the right-hand side. And again, some of these different views are laid out in different ways, and they let you select different information. But if I wanted to see the delivery address, for example, it's not going to show me one, which is typical. It's always good to work with demo data. But if I look through possibly a profit, as I go through and click on these, it's going to show me different profit values, and they're going to change without having to go into multiple screens to get that information. And you might have noticed on at the bottom as well, as I clicked through these, the information at the bottom also changes. And we've got this nice visual traffic light system here as well. It's going to tell me if it's been allocated, whether it's been allocated and it's available for dispatch, whether it's dispatched to be invoiced, invoiced to be posted, and if it's invoiced and posted. So again, you can see very quickly by scrolling down the status of an order. These are fully searchable again as well, so really quick and easy to be able to just type in some information, and that will start to filter out. And I might say, well, actually, for everybody that's called A2, I want to see all of the returns. And on this example, there is 1. But again, I could get that, and then I could put that out into Excel if I wanted to by pressing the export button. If I go into my sales document lines, this sort of filtering and searching becomes particularly useful if I wanted to actually filter on a stock item description. So actually show me everywhere where I've sold a whiteboard. And obviously this is demo data, but that will show me every time that I've sold a whiteboard. I might also say, well, actually show me every time I've sold a whiteboard to A2 Designs. And again, that will show me every time that that's happened. So some of the functionality of the workspaces are very useful. There's a good credit control one, there's some around stock, there's some around purchasing as well. So again, I won't go through all of those, but the functionality remains the same throughout. I mentioned at the start when I was showing the customers and suppliers that we have the sales order process map. If I click into the sales order process map, you'll see here that it's a visual representation of what's happening to a sales order. And this is really useful, particularly as you're getting used to the system and learning how the functionality works. It's also very useful if you're trying to maybe post invoices or print invoices or trying to confirm goods are dispatched, to work your way backwards to go, did I actually print out a picking list? Did I allocate my stock, for example? So again, it's a good little method for doing some troubleshooting. But if I go into, these are all clickable. So if I go into my enter new order, this will load up my new order screen, and I'll select my A2 design. And as you'll see, the alert that I mentioned earlier on has popped up, which said, please see me before you sell anything to this customer. From within here, we can set some defaults. So I've got it set up so if you've got multiple warehouses, because it handles multiple warehouses and multiple stock locations, so multiple bin locations, for example, you would select from here. So if you only have one warehouse, then you would, or a default warehouse, then you can default this. But you might have a showroom, or you might have a shop front where you have stock, or you might even want to use different stock locations for sales staff that may carry stock in their vehicles as they're traveling around the country. So I'm going to select warehouse to fulfill this order from. I'm going to put a customer order number in here, so I'm going to call it a PO 123456. I can look at this point if I wanted to at the delivery information. So this is going to use the invoice address to do the delivery, but I can actually click change in here, and I can set up multiple delivery addresses if I wanted to. So it gets sent to different locations, and it will remember those for the future. If I've got permission, and it is worth mentioning that the system is permission controlled throughout, so only if you've got permission to not only see things on this left-hand menu, but also when you're actually inside different functionality, will you get visibility of these boxes to be able to change. So for example, I've got full permission, so I could actually give a 10% early settlement discount. Obviously, if I didn't have permission, then that wouldn't be there and you wouldn't be able to change it. It will track who's taken the order when I hit save on this as well. We talked about analysis codes. So analysis codes are throughout the system in terms of additional ways to report on the the information from within the system. Again, there's 20. I can rename these, and I can also get these to populate as I work through putting my order on. So things like the salesperson or the area, or you might use this for a van route, for example. We can also take payment with order as well. So again, I can tick the tick box for record payment with order. I might take a full payment, or I might actually take say a £500 deposit against the order. And again, depending on how that payment method is selected, it could be a bank transfer. But if you're actually using a credit card, this can link to the payment functionality that Sage provide as well. And that will pop up a window to allow you to process a payment. Again, the credit card details are not stored within Sage 200. You're not handling or storing, should I say, you're not storing the credit card details. You're merely processing those details within a web page. And then obviously the payment is taken outside of Sage, but it's then allocated against the order, ready for when it's invoiced. So if I come back to my order details tab, I'll untick my payment with order because obviously I'm on a demo system, so I don't want to do that. I can then add my items in. Now there is, you might have noticed a rapid order entry, which is here that I could have clicked. And this is actually a cut down version of this window. So it's a much quicker way of entering orders in. And when I click add items, it's going to open up a new window where I can start to add in items. Now, if I click the rapid, then I actually work through a table where I can have some drop downs and I can actually tab through. And I'll quickly show you that before we finish this, but just so you know the differences between the two. So when I click the drop down, I can see I have got my stock list. And again, I'll show you how stock is set up towards the end of the demo, and I can actually see what's free and available stock that I've got. So I'm going to pick a calculator, and it's calculator printing rolls, and you'll see that we had stock of those, and I can put the quantity of those that I want to sell. So I'm going to have 20 of those. Again, I've got full permission within the system, so I can actually override any of these settings at this point, including the cost price. So there's a cost price here of £3.78. Again, I could have agreed a potentially better price from our supplier of just £3. And if this item is set up on a price list and there's a price band set up against the customer, then it will pre-populate the sell price. I haven't got that on this demo system, but I have got permission to override that. And it's just going to highlight that in yellow because it thinks that it should be 0, but obviously we don't want to sell it for 0. So it's going to highlight that in yellow. And it does other highlighting within the system as well. And sometimes you'll see these change to red if you've done something that it potentially doesn't like. I can add comments to the picking list and dispatch note at this point as well. Again, particularly useful if you wanted to advise the person picking the items to check for something. And likewise on the dispatch note, I can set these comments up as well. So if you want, you've had a particular issue with a stock item, you could get the person that's dispatching the goods to check before they leave the warehouse for any issues. I can actually set up these picking list and dispatch note comments from within the stock setup as well. So it doesn't have to be done on a line basis. It could be as and when you set up a stock record, or somebody that's in control of purchasing that's had a particular issue with a batch of product. You could come in here, set it once, and then that would always go through to every sales order until it's removed. So I'll hit save on that, and that's going to add that line in the background. I'm going to very quickly add a free text line item on here. So I could ask that they also include a free calculator. I'll abbreviate that, but I might want to charge for that, or I might want it to be free. So I'll put £20. It's not very free, is it? But it could be a discounted calculator. Again, I've got my same picking list and dispatch notes, and I can put a unit cost in here as well. So these are just really useful for just adding items on as and when if necessary. Additional charges, these are particularly designed, set up for carriage. So again, you might have DPD or Royal Mail, or you might have a pallet charge that you might charge a customer. So again, it could be like this one, for example, it's a carriage, and then it would go through at £50, and I can hit save on that. And I can also do comment lines. So customer requires ASAP. And again, I could show this on the customer documents, or I could just show this on the picking list documents. So I've got control on where that comment actually displays. So I've built this sales order up really quickly. I've got 3 items on here, plus the comment line. And what I can do is actually come into here and hit save. And this is actually going to process my sales order. So just as that gives me a sales order number, which is 123. So hopefully I'll remember that. And you'll see that later on as we go through the system. Just clicking very quickly into Enter New Order Rapid. Again, this is what I was just talking about in terms of I can select a customer, I get my pop-up, I can enter my PO number, and then from within here, I can start to tab through. So that hasn't let me select. Oh, I haven't selected my warehouse. That's why. I'll do that again. Select that one. And then if I select my warehouse to supply from, and I click into here, I can just select my drop downs. It's going to populate my description. I can override, and I can very quickly sort of just start to tab through and add more items on, depending on the codes that might be available. I can hit save on that. So coming out of that, and if I go back into my sales orders list, you will see if I just hit refresh on this list that I've got my 123, the one that I did by accident, which was a blank order, and then my 125. And I can see that these are live orders, they're allocated in full, and they're ready for dispatch. If I go back into my sales order processing map, I could go through this and use it to amend the orders if I wanted to. I could come in here and print my picking lists. So I'd come in here and say display. I could highlight all of them, or I might just highlight 2 of them and print those. Again, these would then these are going to display on the screen for the purpose of the demonstration, but these would come out of a printer, most likely in a warehouse, to allow the warehouse staff to go and do the picking and the packing process. Obviously, once they've gone through and done that picking and packing process, most likely they're going to want to dispatch. So again, I can come in here and dispatch the goods on my two sales orders that I've got. So you can see here I've got my 123 and my 125 orders, and they can confirm how much they can dispatch. Now, there's a big difference between Sage 50 and Sage 200 is it does allow you to do part dispatching and part allocating. So again, I could actually, I'll dispatch all of those actually, but on this one, I'll just leave 10 remaining and I'll just hit save on there as well. So that's now going to dispatch my goods against the sales orders 123 and 125, and it's going to leave a balance on account. And I'll get a dispatch note printout as well, which I'm assuming you probably would want to print out and include with the goods that are going out to site. You may want to print a couple of these and obviously get one of them signed by the customer and brought back to the office after you've done delivery, assuming that you're doing your own deliveries, or you might want to email them out to the customer. And it's all options that you can set up within the system. Once you've done those dispatches, I'm just going to very quickly flick back to my sales order list. So apologies. I'm going to hit refresh because I haven't got auto refresh turned on. And I can see in here that I've actually done a full dispatch of my 125 and I've done a part dispatch of my 123. And if I drill into my 123 sales order, you'll see that I've got show quantities radio button here on the right hand side. So I can see I've got quantity 20. If I do show values, it's going to show me that I've got 20. I've got 10 still allocated to this, and I've dispatched 10, and then I've invoiced 0. So the next thing we want to do is get some money in. So what we would obviously want to do is go and do a invoice. So I'll just come back out of this. I'm going to flick back to my process map again, just so we all know where we are. We've worked our way through. We've printed out our picking list. We've done the confirmed goods dispatched. And now I'm going to do print invoices. And I'm going to press display. So in here, I've got my 123 and my 125, and I can simply press print. And now at this point, this is going to print the invoice or most likely email the invoice to the customer, and the customer can then obviously make payment against that. That's going to come up on the screen as well, just to show you what that looks like. My two invoices. Now, the final process would be to post those invoices, and the way that Sage 200 works is slightly different to Sage 50, and you would, the reason I say that is you actually have periods, so 1 to 12 being January to December most likely, or running in line with your financial year. And you would go through and close down each period as you progress through the year. So I'll show you that screen later on, but again, you would close your sales ledger down, for example, as you get to the end of the month that you're in. But what is important is that you are doing basically posting those invoices and credit notes, as I'm sure you are fully aware. And that's a simple process that I can come in here and just click my post. And this is going to post anything that I've generated over the last few demos that I've done where I've not potentially hit the post invoice. And then just download a small report that's going to show what's been posted from an invoice and a credit note point of view. These are fully customizable reports again, so I've got lots of options that I can do from within these. I can add additional fields in here if I needed to. I can also print them on the left hand side. I can email them. I can do an export. I can export to Excel. So if you're, I always joke that if you're a fan of unmerging cells, then you would use the report to Excel, and that will take this report and do the best job it possibly can at putting this into Excel in a usable format, which it hasn't done as of yet. Give it a second, it might go through. If I click it again, and if I click data to Excel, we'll see if that one works. Here we go. Oh, not that one. There we go. So data to Excel has gone through, and this will process it through into a way that I can actually filter the data down. I'll run another report somewhere else in the system because it's not pulling that one through. I don't typically show that one. I just thought while that was on the screen, it would be a good one to show you. But again, the two choices are report to Excel, and that will show a formatted version of this within Excel, and data to Excel, which shows a filtered view of the data. But again, I'll show you that shortly. So that probably concludes our sales orders, and the way that we would process a sales order. And again, if we go through into purchase orders, we have a similar view of the data from within here. So again, you would come through and enter a purchase order and select your supplier. You would enter the goods the same as what you've done on a sales order, and then send that purchase order off to your supplier. The difference is obviously you're going to be receiving those goods. So when you do receive those goods, you would want to confirm that those goods have been received within the system. And I would come in and select a supplier. I would select a order number, and then what I could do from within here is confirm how many I have received. I would obviously have to put a reference in against this, but if I've ordered 50, I may have received 20, and then I could press save, and that will update the system accordingly. So once you've had those goods, you're going to receive a purchase invoice. And again, I could receipt those purchase invoices within the system. And that's going to give me the option of the different orders that we've received. And I could click OK onto those. And again, it's going to be an opportunity now to do your two-way matching and make sure that the pricing and the quantities match. And you'd be able to receipt those invoices in to the system and make sure that the balances match. I won't go into doing that process here at this moment in time. So we talked about stock control and stock lists. So if I go into my stock list, this is where you would start to build up your stock. Again, on the left-hand side, there's different inquiries, there's different views and different ways to look at this data. There's ways of creating your stock items through the menu structure if you wanted to. And different reports that you can run on this bottom left-hand side, and different transactions that you can run. So obviously you can issue stock, you can return stock, you can do allocations and adjustments as well when you do those stock checks. There's also the ability to import and export data from within the system as well. So for example, import records, I can do a stock and price list update through this routine on the left-hand side. And if you've already got the data in the system and you need to get it out and update it, then obviously you can do an export on this left-hand side as well. So my stock list is in front of me here. And again, in the same way as we would set up a customer or a supplier, I'd be able to come in here and either create a new item or I'd be able to amend an item. So if I click on my board 003, click on amend details, I can come in and start to see the breakdown of the stock item. There's also product groups within the system as well. So you can group your different products into different stock items into different product groups, and these can be maintained and set up, and these are what link through into the price list. I can confirm whether the item is an active stock item or inactive. I can confirm the VAT rate that relates to it as well, and then I can start to look at additional information like manufacturer information, part numbers, and costing methods, which I can only set up when I actually create the stock item. This stock item is set up as first in, first out, but you might want to set it up, for example, as an average buying price, and it's showing me my average buying price here. And then I've got my item description. So again, just an opportunity to be able to type in some additional information, as well as having the stock code at the top and the description that you see immediately when you add that stock item to a sales order to the right. And again, depending on permissions, when you add that to a sales order, you could potentially overwrite that or amend that at the time of putting it on a sales order, but again, it is permission based. There is a concept of very basic bill of materials within Sage 200 standard. So this is where I decide whether this is a component or a bill item. But for today's demo, I won't go into bill of materials. And I can also add a barcode for this particular stock item as well, if you did want to use a handheld scanner linked to the system. Analysis, again, I've got my analysis codes. I've got 20 analysis codes. There's a couple in here that are pre-set up that I could come in and select. So apparently it's stationary and it's going to be pens for my board, but yeah, for the purpose of the demo, you can see here that I can select different ways of reporting and filtering on the data. Where I'd set up my nominal details for the stock and revenue to be posted, any commodity codes, country of origin, so if you are doing exports, weight, particularly useful if you've got your own vans as well. So when you do print out those dispatch notes or picking lists, you could get the weight included on a sales order, for example. And then various tick boxes that you can tick depending on settings of whether it's a we item or whether it uses reverse charge VAT rules. I would also set my suppliers up in here. So again, this would fall back into my suppliers list. So where you purchase these items from. And again, I could have multiple different suppliers in here that have different pricing structures set up. And I would have my preferred. Again, I can come in and edit those. And this would tell me what the supplier stock code is, what the average lead time is, what your usual order is, what your minimum order is, and again, the price lists and items. So again, quite in depth what you can actually store in here. I can also have alternative items as well. So from within this, I can do alternatives. So sorry, we haven't got that available at the moment, but we have got our whiteboard that's 600 by 1200. Would that be of interest to you? And also we've got cross-selling and upselling opportunities as well. It's disabled on this particular item, but again, this is your typical scenario of I've gone into a toy shop at Christmas. I've bought my child the toy that they want. Would you like batteries for that? Yes, please. I forgot all about that. I hadn't considered that I might need to buy some batteries. So again, it's just those cross-sell, upsell items that you can ask the customer at the time of order. We talked about locations when we talked about purchase orders and sales orders. So this particular item would be stocked in our warehouse, but again, I could add and set up multiple warehouses within here, and then I can have multiple bin locations as well. So you might have replenishment bins yeah, different locations that you might have this stock that you would need to then move it around. And obviously you can do reports based upon stock quantities per warehouse, per bin location, and do transfer requests. So there's always going to be stock in the right locations. Attachments, again, we can add files or a link in here. We can put memos in here as well, and comments. And these are the comments that I mentioned about on a sales order. So I could set a default picking list comments to say, please open the box and check that it's got all the components that you're expecting before sending it to the customer, because we've had some issues. And you could set that once, and then that would carry on through into the system. I'm not going to hit save on there because I don't want to override any settings, but obviously that would be where I could do that. And I have the option of adding stock, transferring stock, writing off stock, and various other options within the system that you can run just from this menu structure. Or again, I could right click and do my actions and do things like movements and issues, price inquiries. I could do reports, and obviously I can export it into Excel as well. Okay, so price book. Price book starts to join everything together now. So this is where your customers would typically have a pricing structure. It's where your stock items would have a pricing structure then linked to it through the price book. And then obviously as you're adding items to your sales orders, the right customers are getting the right price for the right item, depending on how many they're purchasing. So again, I can come in here and maintain my price bands. So in this particular system, I've got 4 price bands. I've got a standard, a public, a trade A and a trade B price list. And I can edit those depending on what the name is and what the currency is. And now the system will always work in sterling and British standards, accounting standards as the base currency and the practice. So it is designed purely to be used within the UK, and obviously it meets all the relevant legislations such as MTD and VAT submissions, so making tax digital and any submissions that you might need to make. But when I set up and maintain my price bands, or I come and set up discounts for things like product groups, again, I could come in and say, right, I would like all of my presentation supplies to have a new price band, and I could name this pricing discount and give it a 10% discount. Or I might want to do it on quantity breaks, and again, I could say if they order more than 100, they get a discount of 10%, or it could be a surge charge if you wanted to do it the other way around. Again, lots of different settings that you can set up within the item, depending on the discount groups, and you would then start to do things like linking your groups to different customers. So again, I've got a discount group in here, and you can see it's linked through to this particular code, but I can add additional customers in here if I wanted to. And I could hit close. There's some inquiry views in here as well. So if I wanted to come through and view my customer prices, view my discounts, look at my stock items, I could do. But there's also reports in here as well that I could run to see price bands by customer price band, different discount groups. So again, lots of different settings that you can have within the system. Yeah, yet to be in a position where we've not been able to meet the customer's requirements. So moving through into Nominal, so this is where the nominal structure would be set up. This is a Sage 50 to 200 migration, so the data within here is very similar to that of what you would see within Sage 50, so the codings probably look very familiar. Now, Sage 200 does allow you to have longer nominal codes than Sage 50, so you're not as limited as potentially you are in Sage 50. It also allows you to total up and header nominal codes as well. So for example, I could put a 40 code above this 4000 or this 4000 range. So when I'm reporting on my nominal, then it would give me like a subtotal of all the 4000 codes. I've also got cost centers and departments. So again, Sage 50 has a concept of departments. These are numbered departments, whereas in Sage 200, you can actually set these departments up to be letters or numbers, again, similar to what you can see in the cost center. Cost centers we would typically see as being used as multiple offices or buildings within a country. So you may have a branch in Nottingham, Leicester, Derby, and within those different branches, you have the same departments within all of them. So again, it gives you that three-way reporting metrics to be able to not only look at it against nominal, but I can also look at it against cost center and department. If I come in and amend an account, you'll see this is where we would set up the departments and the cost centers. And I put a description in here and what category that these report back into. But I can also come through and put a different analysis code. So if there wasn't enough reporting within the nominal, you can also have up to 20 different reporting categories. I can also set budgets within the system as well. So see how you're performing either annually or monthly or a profiled budget. And I could set these up to make sure that I was so you can report on whether you're either over or under your budget per nominal code within a year. I can set up future year budgets as well if that was required. And I can go up to 5 years ahead. And again, I'll just change that to be a monthly budget or an annual budget. Again, I've got the option to put some attachments in here. Again, it could be an Excel document that your accountant sent to you, or it could be some workings that you've done. Lots of different options. So I can put some attachments in here, and I can also put some memos. So again, you can remind yourself or others of what you may have changed or done as part of the using of the system. So I won't change anything in there at the moment. I also have the ability to do journals, and these journals can be either a manual new journal, which I can enter. So again, these could be used for things like your payroll or standing monthly charges that you might have, rent, or could be rates that come through. And I can effectively just put through a single journal, a reversing entry, or a recurring entry, or you might want to use the templates. So I won't save that. Read that. I don't know if it has not been saved. Oh, press yes, not no. So use the template, and then effectively within here you could set up a template. So again, it could be a payroll journal, it could be some standard monthly journals that you do every single month. You could set up these templates, come in here, select them, and it will pre-populate, and you'll be able to just overwrite the figures and journal those in. There is a basic fixed asset register within the system as well. So if I come into fixed assets, I could see I've got a pool car, and I've got some new office furniture. And again, I can click amend on these. So when I click in and amend these, it will give you a different code that you can select from a drop down, the description, how you're going to depreciate them. So this one's an annual straight line, but you might have period reducing balance or annual reducing balance. The net book value of those, what balance sheet and profit and loss codes that these are going to be posted to, the date that you acquired it, when it was last depreciated, what the initial value was, and again, 5 analysis codes. So the manager of that particular item, the location, if you've got multiple locations, and then there's 3 additional analysis codes that you can select as well. And again, these will pull into your monthly or quarterly depreciation. So as I come in here and click depreciate, that will do the relevant postings within the system, and make sure that that's all kept up to date. I'll just click close on that for the time being. So again, fairly top level overview of the nominal, what it looks like, what it can do, but obviously there is lots of reports that you can run within the system as well. So coming towards the end of the demo, I can just very quickly show you the cash book. So within the cash book, this is very similar to Sage 50. So a lot of people will at this point again go, that looks familiar. So I've got my bank account list set up. I've got my balances in here, what any overdraft limits might be. I can amend and set up my bank accounts, and I can also link my bank accounts through from Sage to the bank. There is a list of supported banks, but there is I've only found a couple that aren't on the list. But majority of the leading brands are available and do connect. But I'd set up my a bank from within here. Again, nominal details, account numbers, sort codes, contact details, statement balances would obviously pull through into here. Any memos, attachments, and obviously that e-banking service. But once these bank accounts are set up and you're keeping the balances up to date, I would probably most likely want to be doing a bank reconciliation. So from within here, I've shrank that down and I've lost some of my view, so apologies. So from within here, you could do your bank reconciliation. So again, I'd be coming down, looking at my payments, and then marking those off and matching those to the items in the bottom before saving those off. And again, I could change my bank account if I wanted to at the top here. Again, looks very similar to what you would be used to within Sage 50. So like I say before, there's a couple of different ways of linking it to your bank, and there's also a way of linking it through Sage Pay as well, which gives you additional functionality to help manage foreign payments. And I spoke at the start about the help section, and I've had it minimized during the demo. I've just clicked on the little help icon you might have noticed, and this has popped out this side window on the right hand side. So when we're talking about the help, there's a full website that gives you help and advice on how to use the system. But I've also got this little help panel that appears on the right hand side. So as I said before, it would talk about how to use the functionality, but also if you did use it, what the impact might be, any tips that you might need to be aware of before going through. So it's pretty comprehensive, but you'd also be backed up by our support and our help if you came through EBS for Sage 200 standard. So you'd be able to ring our officers and speak to somebody and ask their advice as well in what you might or might not need to do. I'm just going to close out of that now and just touch on one last item before looking at some of the reporting, and that is invoicing. So we talked about sales orders, we talked about purchase orders, the setup of customers, setup of suppliers, we talked about nominal, cash book, stock items and price books. But a lot of people that I speak to say, well, I just need to send an invoice. I don't need to go through that whole sales order process, that whole dispatching, allocating, dispatching, and invoicing process. And within Sage 200 Standard, again, very similar to Sage 50, you can actually come in and just create a very simple sales invoice. And it works in a very similar way to the sales order processing, but it just skips through some of the functionality that you need. And again, you can select whether it's a stock item or a free charge item, enter in my item, enter in any description, and then obviously any quantities. And then is when I hit save on this, instead of it doing the allocation, the dispatch note, the picking list, the dispatch note, and then invoicing, when I press save, this will just go straight through and produce a invoice. So it's a much quicker way of processing invoices. It's just another option and another way to potentially utilize the system, which we find a lot of Sage 50 users operate in this way. So I won't go into any more detail on the invoicing at this time. I'll just show you some of the reporting. So if I go into my summaries and as I click through into my summary, I've got 6 options. Now I can't alter, unfortunately, any of these. These are kind of what you get out of the box is what you get. But these reports will just show you very basic turnover. I think if this is your company, you might be a little bit concerned, but it will give you some trend lines. It will look at the current year, the last year, 2 years ago, and 3 years ago, and then that data, depending obviously how far your system goes back, will show you those relevant reports. I can also see things like outstanding debt. I can see my top customers. I can look at percentage of sales. So looking at the Pareto, so percentage of customers are responsible for 80% of sales. And I can also look at my worst paying customers and see what the average days might be. Again, we can't change these, unfortunately. You can drill into some of them, but yeah, what Sage give you out of the box is pretty useful, and you get them as standard. Again, just looking through some of the purchase summaries, it's just looking at turnover, supplier invoices overdue, top suppliers, suppliers owed the most. And again, there's a financial summary as well, which shows you financials by period, depending on your demo data, VAT, creditors and debitors. I get a sales order summary as well, so I can look at order and return values, dispatches in the last 12 months, top 10 selling items, and sales profit value. And there's 2 more here as well around purchase orders and stock control summary. So in addition to that, and you may have the eager-eyed viewers may have noticed that I actually clicked into one of these earlier in the demo when I was trying to export data. But you get out of the system, 42 out of the box Excel reports. So you'll see here there's lots of different reports which are available, and these pull the live data out of the system depending on when you last refreshed them. So if I can click that, I'll click refresh, that's going to be completely up to date, and then I would click view. I've already opened this one up, and you'll see that this then starts to show me all of the customer transactions that I've got available. And again, these are out of the box reports that you can then start to slice and dice the data. So I might want to look at the first quarter of the year. I might want to look at my credit notes, and I might want to only be looking at the salesperson Malcolm, and that's going to show me one record. I can clear off these filters as well. I might want to look at the whole year. I might want to look at my credit notes, and I might want to look at them by trade. And again, that will just show me that information. And these will adapt obviously as you go through the year. I've also got some additional reports in here. So days to pay, remember it's demo data. So I think if you had 1,040 average days to pay, then you might be a little bit annoyed. But I can also look at things like sales periods. So it's going to show me the sales by period number. It's going to show me my top customers, and it's going to show me analysis code reporting as well. So again, I talk to a lot of people that spend a lot of time doing reporting. They do management report packs. When we go through these Excel reports, generally speaking, they save a lot of time and can make life a lot easier. We talked about workspaces and reports. So if I just click on the workspace view here, these workspace views are actually possible to be viewed through a web page alone. So you don't have to have the full software installed. You could just have a shortcut or a favorite in your whichever browser you prefer, and you could actually come into here and view the data. And the key bit in here is viewing the data only. So if I went into my sales orders, I could see that particular chart. If I went back into my workspaces and went down into sales order processing and showed my sales document lines that I showed earlier, again, you could see these, and you can see these in a web browser, and you can view the data. I've also got access to reports as well. So I can actually run different reports from within the system from a web browser. Now that will view or display slightly differently. I can export it into PDF, or I can view it within a web page. Again, it's cross-browser compatible. Or if I run these reports within the Sage 200 software, then that will show me on screen through the report designer. So if I just think of a report that I might want to run. So if I just think about running a age debitors summary. Now, the key thing that is different between Sage 50 and Sage 200 is the database that is that runs in the background. Sage 50 is a very much a client-side processing solution. So it's a flat file database format. And your computer is responsible for doing all of the processing. So when you do a report, you're effectively requesting all of the data from the server, and your machine then has to filter that data down and produce a report. And we often hear it's time to, in larger data sets, it's time to go and make a cup of tea. It can take 5 to 60 minutes, depending on the size of the data, depending on the size of the report. Sage 200 works in a very different way. It's server-side processing. It's a SQL database, and that database is much quicker in the way that it operates, and the way that it works is it's actually requesting the completed report to be sent to it. So, for example, I'm going to hit OK and just hope that some data comes back. But you can see how quick that is to actually run a report. Okay, there's not a lot of data in there at the moment, but the idea being is it sends those parameters to the server, and the server then sends the results in a view that we can actually look at. Now, I'm just going to close my Excel down completely. When I click my report to Excel, it didn't work earlier, so I'm going to hope that it works. It did work that time. Again, when I said if you're a fan of unmerging cells, it does the best possible job it can at putting it into Excel. And then, yes, you would have to unmerge cells. The other way of getting the data out is data to Excel. And what this does is it puts it in a view, which hopefully, again, it's worked. It has. So I'd come in here and I'd be able to actually use the drop downs and filter the data out. So I'm getting the source of the data by pulling it into here, which again just makes life a lot easier. And then I can see the different transactions and that are associated to it. So before I complete the demo, Sage, and one of the things that I get asked a lot, especially from people coming from other products that are web-based, is, are Sage developing a web front end? And the answer is yes, they are. So Sage are working very hard at the moment to develop a web front end that's going to run alongside. And this web front end is going to operate in exactly the same manner as Sage 200. Not all of the functionality is in here yet, but you can see that I've got my customers that I've just gone into. I've got my customer list. I can amend them. I can do some credit control. I could even enter some transactions. And when I come in here and click amend against a customer, I get the same menu structure as what I get within Sage 200's core software. So within here, the account opens. I can see the company details, the contacts that we talked about earlier, the trading details. It's obviously flagged something that's saying it's in an invalid format. I can see memos and I can see alerts. Now, longer term, I'm led to believe that the web front end, if not fully replace Sage 200, will be capable of doing 90 to 95% of functionality. But ultimately, I think the product will end up being as a web-based product. As you can see, it's very familiar to use, and once you're used to the layout of Sage 200, you can very easily adapt and move over to the web front end as well. So it's nice to see that there is the product's being progressed and updated, and we have a roadmap that's available on the Sage's website, which show all of the new releases that are coming out. It's probably important to mention that Sage 200 standard doesn't require any manual upgrading. When new releases are available, the product will automatically update itself as and when you open the software, and the functionality within the software changes and upgrades. So slightly different to Sage 200 Professional. If anybody's used Sage 200 Professional in the past, that is a larger upgrade process that you need to go through. But Sage 200 is not. It's a software as a service. It's fully cloud-based, and it will update as you go through. But in terms of an overview of Sage 200, you'd probably be pleased to hear that that is everything. Obviously, there's lots more that we could possibly talk about, and there's lots more that we can demo and show you. But for the purpose of today's session, that's everything that I wanted to cover. And obviously, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us here at EBS. You can visit our website, which is ebs.tech, for more information, and we would be more than happy to assist you. Thanks very much for your time.